Here's something most people never realise. The person who can't switch the brain off at 3 a.m. and the person who snaps at everyone before 9, they're usually running with the same wiring, just pointed in different directions. You might recognise one of those people in yourself. This episode is going to explain what's actually happening, why it isn't a flaw or a weakness, and, most importantly, what you can actually do about it. The trait is called neuroticism. Ignore the clinical name for now. What it actually means is that for people who are high on the neuroticism scale, their internal threat alarm is more sensitive than average. Not broken, more sensitive. In the next 15 minutes, I'll show you why that's sometimes your greatest asset, professionally and in your personal life, and sometimes a thing that quietly erodes everything. I'm Dr Nick Keca. I've spent 25 years in senior executive roles before completing a doctorate in organisational psychology. These videos aren't just about random theories from a library. This is a theory I've lived and then gone back to research in depth. Let's go. Here's what's actually at stake before we go any further. The sleepless nights, the arguments that seem to come from nowhere, the way some people seem to carry a permanent low-level sense that something is about to go wrong. These aren't random. Neuroticism is the single strongest personality predictor of anxiety disorders, depression, and general life dissatisfaction. The costs associated with this trait are huge. A 2010 study estimated the economic burden of elevated neuroticism in the Dutch population, including healthcare, productivity loss, and absenteeism, at billions of euros per year. That's not a psychology statistic, that's a public health number. In fact, this is so significant that the National Health Service in the UK considered screening for trait neuroticism in order to help shape primary care policy. And yet, this is a trait most people have never heard framed this way. Most people think it's just about being a worrier, or being temperamental, or, if you're a man, having a short fuse. Nobody tells you it's one system, that it has a structure, and that it's the trait you can most change in the ways that can have profound effects on the quality of your personal and professional life, impacting your physical and mental health, happiness, and general well-being. That's what this episode is leading up to. So what is neuroticism? It's the sensitivity of your negative emotion system, your internal threat detector. When something goes wrong, or might go wrong, or might have been misinterpreted, neuroticism is a system that registers the signal and produces the emotional response, be it anxiety, irritability, low mood, or a sense of vulnerability. Everyone has this system. The only difference is a sensitivity setting. Low neuroticism means the alarm requires a real substantial threat before it fires. High neuroticism means it fires readily, sometimes at minor situations, sometimes in response to nothing you can really put your finger on. This isn't a character flaw, it's the way this trait manifests. A stable, partially heritable individual difference in how sensitively your nervous system registers threat and generates negative emotion. It evolved this way because missing a threat was, across most of human history, considerably more costly than reacting to a false alarm. The paranoid survived. This trait was their super skill. The trait sits on a spectrum. Most people are somewhere in the middle. The extremes are where the costs and benefits become most visible. Very high neuroticism is genuinely costly. Very low neuroticism has its own costs, in complacency, missed warnings, and a dangerous underestimation of risk. This is why understanding the trait is so important. Neuroticism has two faces. Researchers call them withdrawal and volatility. Withdrawal is the inward version, worry, self-doubt, a low-level sense that something is wrong, the freeze response, the tendency towards sadness. This is a person who lies awake, the one who replays a tough meeting long after it ended, the one who sees the cloud in every silver lining. Volatility is the outward version. Irritability, a short fuse, reactive anger, and emotional instability. This is the man at the red light, the one who snaps after a bad day, the one whose temperature rises faster than others and takes longer to calm down. This is what most people miss. Both of these facets relate to the same underlying trait, pointing in different directions. The same sensitive threat system, one turns inward, one turns outward. And this is pertinent to men specifically, because we've conditioned men to avoid saying, "I feel anxious," so they often experience their neuroticism entirely through the volatility channel. The same activation, the same threat sensitivity, but because the inward expression is culturally off limits, it leaks out as frustration, irritability, and a short temper. Not anger, anxiety, pointed outward. If you'd never call yourself anxious, but you'd quietly admit you've got a short fuse, perhaps reflect on that for a moment, because those might be the same thing. Neuroticism has 6 facets, 6 distinct flavour profiles of what a sensitive threat system actually looks like in daily life. Let me give you the first 3, and more importantly, let me give you the professional experience each one produces, because that's where recognition lies. Anxiety. Not a clinical diagnosis, the everyday version. That board presentation you've been rehearsing in your head at midnight, even though you've done 100 of them. The background scan for what might go wrong before you've even walked into the room. If you've ever felt the weight of something before it had a real reason to be heavy, you already know this trait facet. Angry hostility. The short fuse, the snap when the printer jams, the disproportionate irritation when a junior colleague asks the same question again. This is a facet that, from the outside, appears to be a temper problem. For the inside, it often isn't experienced as anger at all. It's a world of micro frustrations your system registers as slightly too large. Depression, and I want to be precise here, because this matters enormously. The depression facet of neuroticism is a tendency toward everyday sadness, discouragement, and a low baseline mood. It's not clinical depression. Clinical depression is a medical condition with its own diagnostic criteria, its own biology, its own treatment, and it requires professional care. These two things share a name and belong to an emotional palette, but they're not the same thing. If you're watching this and something is interfering with your sleep, your work, your relationships, or your ability to enjoy your life over a protracted period, please speak to your GP. For now, the facet relates to the person who finds it harder than others to recover from a bad day, who ruminates on a failure long after everyone else has moved on, whose default register is slightly lower than the circumstances warrant. Now the remaining 3 facets. Self-consciousness. If you've ever been in the middle of a board presentation, you're competent, well prepared, you've watched yourself from the outside. Suddenly aware of every word, every silence, wondering whether your face is doing the right thing. That's this facet. It's the experience of feeling watched and judged even in the settings where you know, intellectually, that nobody's particularly focused on you. The social threat sensor is running at a frequency just slightly above what the situation requires. Impulsiveness. Not impulsivity in the broad sense. This facet is specifically about the cravings and urges that spike under stress. The drink after a bad meeting, the unnecessary purchase, the biscuit, the cigarette, the scroll. The trait isn't that these impulses are stronger than average, it's that the capacity to resist them weakens under pressure. The neurotic person doesn't eat biscuits every day, they eat more biscuits on the days when everything went wrong. Vulnerability. This is the last facet and it's the quietest. Under pressure, genuine pressure, the kind that would challenge anyone. People high on this facet run out of coping capacity faster than others. Where someone lower on neuroticism might have another gear, another reserve, another adaptation available, the high vulnerability person finds those reserves depleted more quickly. It's not a weakness, it's a narrower margin between functioning and being overwhelmed. There's a genuine bright side about this trait, and I want to be clear about it. Not unnecessarily positive, just accurate. A sensitive alarm catches real danger early. The same vigilance that makes people high in neuroticism exhausting to live with is also what makes them excellent surgeons, pilots, finance directors, and risk managers. The costs don't get cancelled out by the benefits, but the benefits are real and considerable in high-stakes roles. Productive worry drives over preparation. Research consistently shows that the students who worry most about failing are the ones who study most thoroughly. The same mechanism operates in professional settings. The anxiety about a presentation going badly is what makes it meticulous. And here's the status finding I find genuinely striking. Bendersky and Shah conducted a study on who is rated as competent and influential over time. What they found is that people high in neuroticism start with low status because their nervousness is perceived as incompetence. But they track this same group over time. The anxious people gained status, the confident extroverts peaked early and faded. The neurotic people started low and climbed fast, because the same anxiety that hurt them initially was driving them to prepare harder, deliver more carefully, and exceed expectations that had been set low. If you're one of these people who were written off, who over-prepared, and who quietly delivered considerably more than was expected of you, that is this finding, that's your edge. Now for the dark side of this trait. Rumination. High neuroticism is associated with a persistent tendency to replay negative events, to continue processing what has already happened long past the point where it's useful. This isn't reflection. Reflection ends with a conclusion or an action. Rumination circles. It revisits the same ground repeatedly, generates the same conclusions or none at all, and sustains the negative emotion rather than resolving it. The cost is not just to mood. Sustained rumination is a significant predictor of depression and anxiety disorders. Relationship corrosion. Irritability, mood reactivity, and a tendency toward negative interpretation of ambiguous social signals are all aspects of neuroticism, place consistent strain on close relationships. People high on neuroticism report lower relationship satisfaction, and their partners report it too. This isn't inevitable, it's manageable with insight, but the costs are real. Team emotional contagion. This one comes directly from my own doctoral research. Negative emotion is contagious. It travels through groups faster than positive emotion, and it does not stay with its origin point. When one person on a team is experiencing highly neurotic activation, the people around them begin to pick up on the signal. They start scanning for threats that aren't necessarily there. The climate tightens. Even people with low neuroticism begin to behave as if the environment is less safe than it was. My research found a significant negative relationship between mean team neuroticism and team performance, mediated by exactly this contagion mechanism. If you're a team leader and you have one person whose anxiety or irritability is chronically elevated, you're not managing a soft issue, you're managing the performance output of everyone around them. Here's the most practically useful thing in this entire episode. The mechanism behind neuroticism's activation is well understood, and it gives us a lever. Uncertainty. Fog, ambiguity, a vague sense that something's wrong with no shape to it is the primary trigger. Neuroticism activates in conditions of unclear threat. It quietens in the conditions of structured clarity. This process is called trait activation. The trait is expressed when the situation contains cues relevant to it. Uncertainty is the cue. Structure and clarity are the suppressors. Clear goals, defined processes, predictable routines, and a concrete next step are not just good management practice, they're neurochemical signals to a threat-sensitive system that the environment is readable and the alarm can stand down. The same person can be a wreck in a chaotic, undefined environment and genuinely calm and effective in a structured one. The trait hasn't changed, the activation has. Design the situation. You can do this in a work setting and/or in your personal life, which can have a huge impact on your stress levels and cortisol activation. Practically, when you feel the alarm going off at 3 a.m, the instinct is to try to think it through, but thinking at 3 a.m. is mostly threat scanning, not problem solving. The alternative is to produce one single concrete next action. Not a plan for everything, just one step. And the act of producing it changes the quality of the uncertainty. It's no longer shapeless, it has a shape. The internal alarm registers that differently. I want to clarify the key messages in this video. Everything I've described today, the worry, the short fuse, the low mood, the difficulty switching off, these are related to personality traits that sit on a continuum. Everyone has some of each. High levels are costly and manageable. They're not in themselves a diagnosis. This is a different thing entirely. When worry or low mood stops being something you manage and starts managing you, when it's affecting your sleep, your work, your relationships, your ability to enjoy your life, your ability to function, that's a signal. That's not a personality trait operating normally. That's a signal of something more chronic that needs support from someone qualified to help, your GP, a psychologist, or a qualified therapist. Having that conversation is not a sign of weakness, it's the most high-functioning thing you can do. The evidence of this is absolutely clear. Neuroticism is the most changeable of the big 5 traits. It declines naturally with age, it falls measurably in people who take the necessary steps to change their personality traits, the topic of the next video series. It also falls in those who receive effective treatment for anxiety and depression. It's important to understand that you're not stuck in today's setting. If you're watching this right now and something is interfering with your life, please speak to your GP, today if you can. You don't have to struggle with it alone. I want to close by circling back to where we started. 2 men, one lies awake, one snaps. They're wired into the same system, a sensitive, well-evolved threat detection mechanism in a world it wasn't designed for. One pointing inward, one pointing outward. That system has a structure, 2 aspects and 6 facets, each with its own profile and lever. It has real costs to health, to relationships, to team performance. It has real benefits to vigilance, to preparation, to the slow accumulation of status over time through diligence. And it has one practical lever that most people never use deliberately. Uncertainty activates it, structure and clarity quieten it. If you want to make a rapid change, design the situation so it doesn't activate the negative aspects of this trait. Most importantly, of the 5 traits, this is the one the evidence says you can change the most. It declines with age, it falls with development and treatment. You're not fixed at today's setting. If this episode has landed for you, you can find a full written article with all the research references at my website. The link is on the screen now and in the description below. If any part of what I described today is more than personality, if it's interfering with your life, please speak to your GP, don't manage it alone. If you found this episode valuable, please like and subscribe to my channel. The next episode continues the Big 5 series with trait agreeableness. There's a lot more to this trait than meets the eye. I'm Dr Nick Keca. I'll see you there.